Thanks for coming back, or thanks for joining me again, even though it didn't quite work out the first time. But excited to talk to you, Albert, and maybe just start out with a quick intro, if you don't mind.
Of course. So my name is Albert, CEO and founder of SmartBarrel. I've been doing it for more than 5 years now. Prior to that, I was in construction. I was mainly in glass and glazing for more than 10 years.
That's awesome. Did you start a timesheet app because you were sick of tracking down timesheets of people, or what was the pain point there that brought you to this?
Listen, there's a lot of it's the accumulation of a lot of things, but definitely nobody in their right mind decides. So there's a lot of things that make no sense. Nobody in high school or in college like said, "Oh, one day I'm gonna be a glazer. I'm gonna install windows." Right? This is zero people's dream. People want to be astronauts, pilots, go join the Navy. I
They
actually
should
wanted
like
to.
glazing, though. It's pretty
I
cool.
know, I know, but I had no idea it was even a thing. You know, when I graduated college, I wanted to become an aerospace engineer, aeronautical engineer. I have a passion for planes. Literally, I studied industrial engineering. I'm trying to look for options, and then I'm interviewing for all those aerospace engineering programs. And obviously, I have a very strong entrepreneurial bug. And then while speaking to few alumni, I realized very quickly that nobody builds a plane. Like there is no one person building a plane. You end up pursuing like 18 years working on the fuselage or like the flaps or the landing gear and da da da. And that depressed me. I'm like, and then literally one guy, like, oh, it was Skype at a time, and he literally snapped on me. He's like, "What are you insane? Like, nobody builds a plane." I'm like, "What do you mean, who builds a plane?" I'm like, "Nobody builds a plane. You're insane." And that depressed me. And by pure randomness, I end up meeting someone who basically convinced me to co-found with him a glass factory. So he comes from the industry, he had the capital. He's like, I just need someone like on a sweat equity basis, come like prove yourself. And I remember very well, like the first maybe 5 minutes of the conversation, I was like, Windows? Like, is that a thing? Do people do this like like, it's just so delusional. And then 6 months later, I became obsessed. Like there's so much science and technology and robotics and invasion between glass and aluminum and steel and ACP panels and the contracting and the engineering. And like it's phenomenal when especially when you look at a building and you see it wrapped with glass, which is technically called building envelope. Well, this piece of glass is what's basically keeping you from flying off of your 46th floor, right? So it's acting as a like mechanical barrier that's holding you in place. It's doing also all sort of thermal magic, keeping the heat out and keeping the cold in and all sorts of like fancy stuff. And it's also an acoustic barrier, right? If you live by an airport, so there's so much science that goes into it that really people like take it for like nothing, right? Low E, tempered glass, not tempered glass, like the safety, the strength, yada yada. So I really became kind of like obsessed with it. I end up like co-founding the factory, we end up like growing it, and then that basically like propelled my career into jumping all over the world on all sorts of construction job sites. Now, so this was delusion number one. Now, delusion number two is I'm jumping on projects of all sizes, right? Like 20, 10, 20 workers and a couple hundred workers and everything in between. Paper clipboards are like everywhere, right? Like everywhere. Union, non-union, New York, Miami, Canada, like no matter what, paper clipboard are crushing it. And of course, like late 20s, on top of the world, you're like, this is insane. Like this is when Uber was like going crazy. Like you start Instacart, you order stuff from your phone, you get it. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like every week I have to write this like six-figure payroll check that I have no idea if I can stand behind the numbers. Like I genuinely have no idea. I have to take everything at face value. And I obviously didn't go from this to let's build tech. Like this, I mean, I was delusional, but not enough. So the natural next step was like, let's go and procure tech. And I sourced a whole bunch of solutions and one after the other kept failing for many, many different reasons. And that basically, after a year of like getting beat up, I'm like, okay, there's obviously a gap here and people are approaching it a bit not necessarily the most optimal way. So I decided to give it.
That's so cool. You touched on a bunch of things I want to dig into more deeply. Let's start with glazing, just because I echo your sentiment about how cool. Maybe we can widen it to just building materials are cool, but like glazing kind of especially because it's clear. Architects love glass on buildings, and I think people do too. We like to be able to see through it. There's all these aspects of glass that we take for granted. I don't anymore because I got to work for a structural glazing engineering company for a couple years, and I drive through San Francisco now and look at all the lobbies of all these skyscrapers, and there's just these huge panes of glass that I think people don't even look at, but it's an amazing feat of engineering just to get that huge piece of glass into place, let alone caulking around it and the structural steel you need to support it. And this is the part about construction that I really love. And maybe we can just collaborate on loving construction here a little bit. But in that kind of sector of the industry, you get to see, like you did, the manufacturing process. You've got to make this glass somewhere, and then you've got to ship it, and then an architect has to design a way for it to attach to a building, and then you have all these other things that you're trying to optimize for the customer, like how they can see out, who can see in, can sunlight get in, can heat get in, can cool get out. And that's why I think construction is cool, but people, we don't get to tell the story of how a building was built. We're just like, maybe we know the architect's name of that building, but most of the time, not even that. And there are laborers that are putting in that glass that are artisans that we're just glazing over, to use the term.
No, like construction is insanely underrated. I say it all day, all night. I think it doesn't get remotely the appreciation it deserves. I have yet to see any other industry that is remotely as merciless as construction. You have an artist of an architect who wants to make a one-story house or an 80-story building his flagship dream, right? This is it. No matter how small the project is, they want to give it their touch, their vision, and it's all CAD and BIM, right? They're drawing in 3D space, absolutely vision based. Then you have the contractor, let's say the glazing or the electrician or the concrete or whatever. They have to take this very aesthetic focused, has a bit of practicality, but really the goal is to have it aesthetically and build it into a practical world. And mind you, we're not building it repetitively, right? It's every project in construction is an MVP. When you're done with it, you scrap everything, start all over. There's no learnings that you take from A to B because every project comes in. So you're literally building one MVP at a time. And number one, challenge number one, which is huge, it's learning on the fly. Second is you're building with every liability in the world, right? No water penetration, no wind penetration, no rust, no mold, no breaking, no smacking. Like everything's on your, not the architect. The architect drew the window. You're the one who's installing it and owning all the liability for the next, what, 10, 20, 30 years? Like it's insane. And the third one is you're coordinating with many other companies that you've never met. You never had choice to choose. I am shoved a concrete contractor. I'm shoved a drywall contractor. I'm shoved a painting contractor that somehow we all need to collaborate with minimal introduction, minimal team bonding, to nothing. You just get it done. He just schedule it, run with it. People don't underestimate, like in every other corporate, like your Inc. 500 corporate American, there's so much that goes into building culture, collaboration, MVP, learnings from all projects. Construction, just wing it. Ability is up the wall. Your neck is on the line for the next 40 years. You'd better build something this. You have to deliver an aesthetic vision. You have to worry about the codes, the wind speeds, the hurricane, that everything is on you. You just have to match this aesthetic vision. You shove people to collaborate with that you had no say. I had no say who the shell contractor is. I had no say who the drywall is. They might be qualified. They may be qualified. They might be assholes to work with. They might be amazing too. I have no say. And I have a tight deadline and high liability. And people don't understand that it's almost like a miracle, every project being done. Like they really underestimate how 300, 400 people, that different backgrounds, different culture, different ethnic groups, different languages, all collaborating on this tight schedule to catch it done by June 2027, just because this world, it's insane. It's really insane.
It's cool though, because I think that transitioned us well into like why both of us got interested in tech helping. Because, and I think your approach is great just because I know you well enough to know you're building something kind of field first. You're thinking about the laborer and trying to make the project more efficient, and so that everybody can be a little less stressed. And that's the kind of tech that I want the industry to adopt, is tech that really helps, that's constructive. Can you talk a little bit about building something with technology to actually really help the worker and the whole project?
Of course. And I have to throw in a huge disclaimer because I have to be honest with myself. the focus on the worker, the approach that we've always taken is not coming from a kumbaya, do the right thing, like hug everyone, yada yada. I mean, this is a byproduct, and I have to be very honest with it. The starting point of everything we've developed is let's focus on the proper incentives. And I think this is what 90% of people miss, right? People try to build a solution for the check writer and say,
Mm.
listen, he's writing the check whatever he wants. We actually took a step. We said, okay, let's assume everyone would write the check from an incentives perspective, what would the worker want, right? Like, does it make sense that the worker has to know his cost coding? But why would I code my time? I get zero bonus if I put it right, put it wrong. What's in it for the worker? What's in it? And then we took every stakeholder. What's in it for the foreman? What's in it for the PM? And we mapped their career and what would they want out of the solution. And then when you start lining up incentive, this is where other, like, there's leading and lagging. And this is where the lagging phenomena happen. Like, oh, it's intuitive. We have great adoption. But they all come naturally once your incentives align. What does the worker care for? Well, he wants an easy solution. He doesn't want to go be trained on a new solution. Like, leave me alone. I have enough on my plate. He wants something as seamless as possible that doesn't intimidate him, doesn't make him feel da da da. The honest workers want an honest solution that shows that I'm showing up 30 minutes earlier, that shows I'm staying a bit longer, that puts accountability. So the ones that are trying to play the system get kicked off the side. They are pro this. So once you start building this, they want proof that without being gate kept, you don't have to download an app, pay, like they want access to the data. Once you start lining things up and draw the line and say, okay, this is enough. We don't want to ask more because this is what they care for. You start seeing very intuitive solution, high NPS score, high adoption rate, just because you're checking all the boxes. Then now you go to the foreman, you do exactly the same exercise. What does the foreman care for? Well, the foreman is a worker that just promoted to lead a crew. So he needs to shine with that crew. He needs to act like it was, so give him all the data points to make him shine, but make it easy. Don't make it intimidated. Don't put it in complex languages. Don't make a 17-step process that he needs to like learn every day. And once you have this one, oh, suddenly all the foremans are on top of it and they're doing amazing work. Now you go to the PM. Well, what does the PM need to do? His goal is to become either PX or like director of construction or whatever. So how do you climb that ladder? Well, your project must be making money. How do you make money? Your cost codes are under budget. So give him all the tools to stay on top of this and basically navigate, track the weather, track the adjustment, the daily log, da 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 da. Then you go to the payroll admin. The payroll admin cares about nothing but less headache on payroll day. Like, that's it. She's not auditing the work. She just makes sure that everyone's paid the right amount and on time and nobody's calling the day after screaming. So once you start understanding really like all those check boxes, it becomes very easy to basically take those and build the solution in that kind of duality. And then suddenly you have a very, very sticky solution, very NPS high solution, yada, yada, without really artificially starting from those, right? To get them to become the lagging factor. The leading is just align your incentives. That's it.
It seems like hearing you say all that, like those are crazy important lessons to learn. I don't think you can learn them in school. It kind of sounds to me like you learn them by asking why a lot. Like, is this the case?
Yeah, I'm definitely a very curious guy since I was young, but also I was very fortunate because two things happened that helped me, that gave me a humongous leap into what we built. One is I lived the field for 10 years, right? So like I wore boots, hard hat, vest, so I know what work, what doesn't work. I know the whole dynamics in the job sites, the egos, the different like challenges, whether it's languages, whether it's demographic, whether it's temp agencies. So I own the worker, but I don't own the worker because there's a company in between us. So like all those dynamics, I've lived them enough. Also, I got to test many different solutions. So I saw how they took shortcuts, which on a Zoom like this, it
Mm.
sounded very appealing. But then when I went to the field, I'm like, oh my God, like there's a big hole here. There's a big gap here. Or obviously I can see how they can cheat here. Or obviously I can see how this is not going to work. So those two basically set me up on a high level of like saying, okay, like this is our starting point. I know all of this is going to fail. I had like it's a famously sheet where I think I wrote like 120 excuses before starting like the first feature in SmartBarrel, being like, okay, I don't have power, I don't have internet, worker doesn't have smartphone, they don't have data, they don't have a vest on them, blah, 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 blah. Like the internet, underground, basement, weather, like the whole thing. And that was kind of the starting point. I was like, holy shit, like this is really a very high bar. And hence why we did the whole like SmartBarrel big tower thing, because I really went like overboard with the excuses. I'm like, I have to get something really as bulletproof as possible. And from there we started building up.
Can you, since you're mentioning it anyway, and I'm sure people can go to the website as well and watch a great video about it, but do a high level overview of what Smart Barrel is so that people know what we're talking.
Of course. So ultimately, SmartBarrel is growing to become a workforce management planning. But our starting point, where we wanted to like place our ultimate wedge, is timekeeping. And the biggest fundamental difference between every other solution, probably, and SmartBarrel is that our starting point was to basically not allow any manual time entry and crew foreman time entry. So we wanted to make sure to bypass this and have every worker report their own time. Now, the challenge with having every worker report all the time, you have to rely on the workers' buy-in. And this is where usually mobile apps come in play. Well, getting 80, 90, 100 workers to download the mobile app is almost impossible, and you will never get a full week timesheet. Every excuse under the sun will come. So we decided to build a piece of hardware that checks two big boxes. One is insanely easy to deploy. So it's weatherproof, magnetic, self-connected, solar powered, even power tool powered. Like really, you can deploy it on any site, anywhere in minutes. And the second, having it very, very easy to use and check in. All the worker has to do, walk to the machine, put their phone number, takes a picture of their face, biometrically validates them and pushes it to the cloud. This combo basically allowed us to basically bypass any excuse from not having any worker walking into your job site to check himself in or out. Foreman is not on site, trailer is locked down, iPad is not charged, we don't have good reception, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. There's an orange box, you walk to it, you check in, you check out. So what happened is that the flow, we didn't disrupt anything. We didn't reinvent the wheel, did nothing at all. The flow is exactly the. But now the foreman starting point is a pre-populated, facially verified timesheet with all his workers and hours versus him creating it. Then from here, he does all the magic in the world. He can cost code it, approve it, add quantities, production quantities, the schedule, the crews, the format, like you name it. And then it goes through all the approval sequences to hit the project budget, to go to the payroll, calculate overtime, double time, all the fun stuff. But this switch of priorities at the beginning of the process where the worker is self-checking himself in and having the foreman start with a pre-populated, verified timesheet has changed the whole equation. And this is where the whole accuracy comes into play. Now you're starting with a data set that you can take to court, stand behind, attract, and it's auto populated. You don't have to go chase this information. They're all face back, total hours, what they worked on, yada yada. So all your numbers become exponentially more accurate.
You're making me think too about the industry of construction tech as a whole, in that you mentioned earlier, like, it's not just a kumbaya, we want to help the worker. And I totally see that because there's an implication on the bottom line. But what you're making me realize is people building tech for construction, they might be optimizing for the customer, which maybe is a GC, but ultimately on a construction project, it's the owner. So I think about, like, my thought was, how do we build tech that an owner of a construction project would want or be helpful to them? But the truth is, the thing that's helpful to the owner is if the worker's motivated to work, and the worker's job is easier to do, and even the architect and the GC, like, that they're still motivated. So if you're really thinking about the customer, you're also needing to dig down a few levels, right?
100%. Like at the end of the day, construction is nothing more than equipment, I mean, material and labor, right? There's a small equipment that goes into it, but really the biggest bulk is material is much easier to do. You can hedge, you can ship ahead, you can bunk, you can do a million things. Labor is this like very fluid asset, insanely complicated to manage. And if you really narrow down this asset, tighten it up, and tighten it up is not just in control. If you build motivational stuff, inspiration stuff, quotas, budget, like training, yada yada, you really make a huge dent in the progress of a project, whether you're on owner level, GC level, or the sub itself. And this is the asset that is most complicated. Everyone's building around it, right? Everyone's trying to avoid this kind of like troubled child, right? Everyone's like, oh, no, no, let's focus on material. Let's add more. Let's do OSIP, CSIP. Let's put more insurance, more tightness, scheduling, the crew management, yada, yada. I get it. But if you go to the end worker himself and he is motivated, he is trained, he has good transparency on what needs to be done next week, like all those like small stuff, you will see more than in your job site progress, financial, yada, yada, than all the others combined.
Yeah. Do you think it took you a while to realize when you made this kind of transition into building a technology solution, did it take you a while to come to the conclusion, let's pick a specific thing like timesheets or time tracking and dig in on that before we try to solve the whole problem of construction? Was that important to you? How did you make that
Yeah.
choice?
So it was one step below. It was one step below. We started with attendance. And my goal is let's make sure. So this used to be an internal saying that we had in the office in our early days, is that I want to make sure that the data on my screen matches the data from my window. I'm assuming in an office trailer. And this is where this technology has always failed, is that you can have data on your Procore daily log, you can have data and yeah, any daily log submitted, any attendance, da, 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 and then you go count people outside and there's always a delta. Right. There's always like a variance because it's self-reported, because it's not accurate, because people are counting them, people are inflating their numbers, yada, yada. And my goal, like mission one was very, very dumb and very simple. We wanted to make sure. So in this statement, there's two big challenges. One is I wanted the accuracy. Two, I wanted it in real time. I don't want it the next day. I want to make sure that I'm looking at my monitor now and I see a number, how many workers I have total on site, how many I have per trade, who they are, and I can look outside and it matches in real time. So as they leave, this number is going down. That was our starting point. So we didn't care about timesheets, we didn't care about overtime, nothing, just pure having this excuse-free way of capturing this information, whether you're doing a horizontal building, vertical building, civil work, underground basement, remodeling, that doesn't matter. Just this screen needs to match the window with like solid accuracy. And then as long as the answer was not yes, the device could not be connected today. Oh, we had this issue. Oh, this worker onboarding is taking 2 days. Da, 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 da. We kept optimizing to have absolutely no reason why this shouldn't match outside. And then once we had this, we're like, okay, so now we can build the daily log and send it to the GC. Now we can build a time card and send it for payroll. Now we can have subcontractor management tool and send them an invoice. Now we can have a temp agency. Now, and we started building this whole ecosystem. And okay, what else do you need? Well, I'd love to have the weather because I can make them go to another job site. Well, now if they go to another job, we calculate their drive time and create them. And this is how it started evolving. But this was the nucleus that we needed to win first. We didn't move. It took us like almost 2.5 years, almost three, just focusing on that one task. So we weren't even a full product. But once we start hitting that, it's where you see traction immediately. People were willing to sacrifice everything else to get this like accuracy. And then that's what we keep deploying.
I feel like that's a great aim to go for in the construction industry in general, is like what I'm seeing at the computer needs to reflect what's happening in the field. That's, you could make that really broad, but I'm interested too. I bet you're getting tons of feedback from all areas. What do workers tend to say about it? How does the project tend to benefit from SmartBarrel?
I think there's four ways a contractor experience kind some sort of like financial, or I mean they all turn to financial, whether they're time savings or morale savings. But there's number one, it's really just automating the process, right? It's very, very basic. If you have like a 17 dot process and now you can make it in 5 dot process, just save 12 dot process. Like this is just saving in time, saving in processes, da, da, da. The second one, there's an accuracy, right? So like even if the process are the same, well, it takes a foreman 5 minutes to copy paste the timesheet from yesterday. It takes SmartBarrel 5 minutes. It's fine. It's one to one. But how accurate is this data? How much can you stand behind it in court? How accurate is it financially? How accurate is it that this guy worked 10 hours, not 10 and a half, not 9.5, da, 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 da. You can go through this. So there's a huge ROI on the accuracy. The third one, and I push on it a lot, and I don't know why it's missed industry wide, time to data, right? If it's the same 5 steps and it's very, very accurate, if I'm getting it 1 week later, if I'm getting it 2 days later, it might be way too late. I want to know at 9 a.m. how many people I have right now, where is everyone's at? I might move people around. So like the time to data in construction, I mean, one day is 8 hours times 10 people times like what, $25, $35. That's a lot of money. By the time you're like, oh shit, I need to move them. So if you have this in real time, it's invaluable. And the last one, which this is, I'm going to stand behind it. There is science behind it, but also it is a bit kumbaya-ish. But there is a shift in your company morale when suddenly C-level is putting eyes on the job site and bypassing all the politics and having accountability, right? Like if you walk to a place where you know you can cheat, it shifts a bit in your mindset, right? You'll be like, listen, I'm better off just work because there's no way. Because what ruins crews more than anything is having the rotten apple phenomenon, where you have one worker who keeps screwing around and the other 19 don't want to work anymore because like, why is this guy getting 40 hours? and he's literally skipping half the day, and then I get 40 hours and I'm sweating my ass off. Right. So this is very, very destructive. And this catches it in a second. So there's the whole shift like, oh, now they care. Maybe the CEO walks or the president of the company walks on a job site and says, hey, I know who you are. I've seen your face a few weeks in the report. You're working really late on Saturday. And we've had those case studies. And they really make a big dent. So those are the four that I think like definitely you feel them within week one of using SmartBarrel for sure.
Yeah, you did an awesome job because I was going to follow it up with like, don't people mind having their face recognized on it? And I can think of a whole bunch of excuses. But as you were talking, I was just realizing the people that you're going to filter out by saying, hey guys, we're using this on our site, whether you like it or not, it's going to benefit the people who are honest, and it's going to be more fair than a human in a lot of ways because, hey, you just got to get there and have your face recognized. But I think the people who are going to push back, it's going to be a whole bunch of reasons that basically they just want to get away with a little bit of cheating, you know?
What we always say, and this is maybe a tiny bit controversial. This opens a bit of like kind of for maybe not. But my genuine philosophy is a foreman and a superintendent hate doing timekeeping. And if they're too attached to the process, it's worth investigating. There's something fishy happening. They genuinely hate. It's admin work. It's tedious. It's a lot of details. You screw it up all the time. If you do something bad, your crew is mad at you. If you do something bad, your job budget is hit differently. It's a lot of accountability for no ROI. Like, why do I even care? I genuinely believe it honest like foreman and honest superintendent, they really just love building. They love managing the crew. They're this big motivation. If they're too attached to the timekeeping process, it usually signals there's an ego problem, there's a control problem, or there's a fraud problem. So like it's definitely worth investigation. Usually a foreman seeing what SmartBarrel does, they're like, oh my God, this is building my timesheet in front of my eyes. I just have to say yes, 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 no, and send it. And we're like, yep. And they're like, oh, this is like gift from God. If it's not this reaction, usually it's worth like digging into.
Yeah, I could see that. I think we're kind of in a moment of convergence. I think it will take some time for construction to really get there, but AI has come and it's a big deal. And I'm just curious I guess in a vague sense, what role do you see SmartBarrel playing in that ecosystem?
Well, number one, before figuring out where and why we should add AI and if it's hype or if it's real, because there's a lot of like, let's jump on the hype and build a copilot of copilot that it means nothing to nobody. I think the real starting point for any construction company today, and whether it's for smart builders, for not smart builders, for whatever, sit down, block a day, two, three, and literally go through all your data points and try to score their validity. Because once you start adding machine learning or AI or an LLM on top of it, this entire engine will be as good as your data source. Meaning, if your cost coded are very vague, very broad, and you're using this cost code for 7 different things, well, it's not going to be able to give you much insight on your future. It's not going to be able to do projection. If your workers are all copy pasted timesheets from the day before and somehow magically everyone's working 10.00 hours and all working this cost code and all showing up 700 to the, well, it's also not going to be able to do a lot of magic. The more you have accuracy, the more you have who's showing up late, who's showing up early, how many hours they're putting in. If you go a bit more granular on your cost code and being honest with them, well, this is door framing, this door installation, then you have a great data set. Over time, you start adding some AI into it, and it can give you very solid projections. The problem is that we're skipping this step, right? Seems everyone's jumping on AI and everyone's skipping this one step of not having phenomenal data. And then now you throw AI on it and it's really winging it at this point. It's just taking guessed data that is amplifying it and throwing you guess projections. And the delta is going to be very, like, it's really huge. And then my worry is that 2, 3 years from now, the whole industry stigma is back again of what we're dealing with, is that AI doesn't work. It doesn't work for construction. We have to go back to analog because it doesn't work. And it's not that it doesn't work. It's just like, I think 80%, maybe 90% of the construction industry, their data set is like very, very poor. It's all
Yeah.
manual. That's not properly tagged. Nobody's taking the time. Even from an AP perspective, from an invoicing perspective, I don't know how much they're being diligent. I know first handed how you put an invoice on this project, on that project, and oversee it on there and overhead from here to there. So If this is like Frankenstein, well, your output is going to be Frankenstein. The system is not going to figure out what you're trying to do. It's going to basically project a lot of garbage data. And I think unless this is like fixed in any construction company in the next 3, 6, 9 months, really, it's garbage in, garbage out. There's not much you can do with it.
Yeah, I think we need a lot of data and we need good standardized interoperable data. We need data that like makes sense to a computer. I think we've been gathering data as a construction industry, but we're just like take this pencil and pen thing and plug it into a spreadsheet and now we've got data. No, that's not like data that AI is really going to make great products from because like you said, it's chaotic and AI needs standardized data. And that's why I think SmartBarrel is smart to think of a way to just automatically collect the data so you don't have to have these manual forms trying to
And it's
talk
and
with,
it's
yeah.
yeah, and it's also golden data set, right? Like you have punch, worker, face, geotag, time tag, rounded time, job, project, da 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 da, per worker in, per worker out, per cost code, per tax. Like the data set is not humanly be digestible, but you put it over weeks and you don't even need to do any work. Just the LLM reads it like textbook because understand, okay, this is where he was, da 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 da. Now you cover it across all your projects or all couple 100 workers, yada yada. You can see, you can run turnover, you can understand the risk, crew addition when those 4 workers are working on this course code, they're performing way better than those workers. And this is only valid because the data is sensor populated, right? It's phenomenal. There's no negotiation about the rate. There's the face, there's biometric, and all the ones that are manually inputted, it can discard them. It can say, okay, those I'm going to touch. And this is when you can start having your AI really start at like 80, 90% efficiency versus having it read your copy pasted time card for the last 2 years that mean nothing to nobody. And then system's gonna be like, oh, you've been doing great. Like keep doing this. Like what do you want me to say? And we
Yeah.
built actually like to this is like a small like so I'm big on paper because there's no need to not digitize paper. We built kind of this is kind of like this episode one of many, basically a guide that every contractor can like download. It's free, there's nothing I'm selling here. And basically it's like a self audit. They can go on each page and basically put from 1 to 5 each line item if they have censored accuracy data, da da da, if the data is in real time, da da. Basically, at the end, it gives you a score of how great your data set is, how your operation is set. We're calling it contractor hard mode, which basically means how much are you grasping control of your company. And it's gonna go, one is gonna go ERP, one is gonna go for your data sets and whatnot. And at the end, we're hoping you get kind of like a weekly score and you can like optimize processes and
Mm.
then see week to week if you're getting a bit better. Nothing to sell. Some of them are like no brainers. Some of them are stuff. But I think it's a good kind of starting point to have people understand where they stand because everyone lives in this like static quo world. Well, it's been working for 20 years. Why am I going to change? I'm like, yeah, or we've been using this great ERP. This is one of my biggest things is I talk to someone and say, oh, we use a lot of tech. We have Procore, we have Vista, Viewpoint Vista, we have, I don't know, Plan Grade. I'm like, okay, great. But if the whole source is like, how are you inputting this data? Who is validating this data? Who is putting some auditability to this data? If not, software by itself does nothing. It's just a database that's capturing information for you.
Right. I was going to lead that into you kind of started to answer the question anyway, but do you think construction sites will reach a point where they're just fully automated? And are we on that path? Are we somewhere on that path? Because I think I kind of want that. I want humans to stay involved for a long time. I think they'll have to. But what I mean by fully automated is can we get every aspect of it like that, where timesheets are just being kept without anybody actually have to think about it, you know?
Think so. I think so. I think we have the technology, right? We don't need AI for this. I think we have the technology, we have the sensors, we have the cameras, we have the whole stuff. What we're missing is 3 things. There's a huge fragmentation of the industry. So like if whatever is working in Texas doesn't mean it's gonna work in New York, whatever works in New York doesn't mean it's gonna work in Ontario, whatever works in California not gonna work in Seattle. Like there's very, very fragmentation between the trades and the cities and the geographic and the weather. And this is becoming like there's no standard like universe. It's very, very fragmented. Number two, there's a lot of skepticism, like a lot of skepticism. So I don't think the construction industry is not innovative enough or forward thinking enough. I think it's too scarred. I think it's been burnt way too many times. And there is that. Like they start looking at you saying, I don't trust you, I don't believe you. Like this is before you say hello, right? Which everywhere else they're like, hey, let me know, maybe, but they're not looking for the next solution. They have to be like convinced all the time. So this is very like taxing, and this adds kind of like traffic, this adds like a buffer of delay. And the third one is, I think people always are doing the same freaking mistake of let's skip 8 steps, right? Like, let's go from a hammer. Like, I remember when I started tech, I went to this a trade show. I don't remember where. It was like a tech innovation thing. And the one who won an award, which really at the time like pissed me off a lot, because the one who won the award, the most innovative tech solution was the hard hat with AR goggles, right? It's the HoloLens makes it, which is phenomenal technology. Zero use case, right? Like, I have walked hundreds of job sites in my life. I've never seen one guy looking from a HoloLens to see how the MEP pipe is going to hit. Like, BIM model does great area. So it was a very, very cool gadget, zero use case. Like, you walk on a job site, they're still using hammers, chalk, pencils, light, draw, like, like, it's very, very manual. So you don't need to go from hammer to
Mm.
HoloLens. Like, you don't need to, right? Do like Dusty Robotics. Yeah, do layout with robotics, but still using CHAOS, still using the same. And this is kind of what I mean. Like, people are continuously trying to go from zero to hero instead of doing like incremental, healthy steps of like, okay, let's take the small process and let layout takes forever. It's annoying, it's not accurate. Yes, let's put a robot that draws all the layout on the floor. Genius, right? Time cards take forever. I don't need the machine to issue payroll. Like, just capture this information, like, phenomenal, and then build workflows on top of it. Like, same thing for material purchasing, right? Let's do one thing at a time. Let's process, have more AI, validate the data. Same approval process, like baby chunks, instead of having one thing that's like, poof, we're gonna hit home run with this. And what's the point?
I
I
love
think those are
that.
my three,
I think
my 3 points.
it's great philosophy. I hope everybody listened to that. And I want to end with kind of a fun one. If you could put SmartBarrel back in time anywhere on the world, which project, any in history, would you want the data from about what they were doing on that job site? So you could put SmartBarrel at the construction of the pyramids or the Burj Khalifa. Which project do you want to track?
Well, sadly, I have a more realistic one for me that is probably less exciting. But I lived and worked for 3 years in Nassau, Bahamas on the Bahamar, which was a $3.5 billion resort, has, I don't know, between 4,000 and 6,000 workers. We were only in charge of delivering the material and supervising the installation. We had like diverse workforce, a bit from all over the world. I think having Smart Bid at a time would have given me insane amount of insight on,
Hmm.
to this day, on really how many hours we put, where was this hour spent, where was the efficiency of those hours. It was absolute shit show. It was 3 shifts a day, 24 hours working. We didn't know who was in, who was out. We didn't know why we were late, why we were early. It was really just push, push, push at all costs. And not just from our trade, like across the project. Like, what's the output of 6,000 workers doing 3 shifts a day? Like, these numbers I can't compute in my head. We can guesstimate them on Excel, but I would have loved to track this data and see, like, 2,200 rooms, 110,000 square feet casino. Like, what did it take in human watt hour to really output this building? That would have been kind of very cool to have.
My dream as a kid was always like either build a crazy resort or golf course or something like that. But every time I bring that up in my professional life, people are like, you don't really wish that. So are
Yeah.
those
No.
projects really hard?
Oh, I mean, I think hard is an understatement. I think, because it's a probability, right? Like, when you're doing a condo, you have, I don't know, 200 things that can go wrong. When you're doing like a industrial complex, you have another 500 things that could go wrong. When you have like a commercial area, and this has everything, right? You have the pool, the jacuzzi, the aquarium, the beach, the ocean, the villas, the restaurants, the huts, the permits, the license, the file. Like, so everything compounds, and you still have tight deadline. It's not like you're doing one building and then a casino, and you're doing them at the same time. So it's like, think of every construction site, how it's like, and they had the golf course, by the way, and they had like civil work, and they had infrastructure, and they had the power station. So think of each one of those industries, and they're like 300 big disaster problem that they avoid, and they're all compounding on top of each other. And at the end of the day, you're still one person, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're
Yeah.
one GC or you're one developer. and it's just fire drill fighting on beyond steroids, like
And
totally.
it's like luxury finishes too, which I imagine has another
Yeah, I mean, it's
level
the
to it.
service also. Yeah, like when you're trying to even get guests in, they don't care you've been bleeding for 3 years. They're like, "You see my room doesn't work. I want a
Yeah.
refund." I'm like, "Okay, you don't know what we've been through."
Well, really appreciate meeting you. Do you want to point people to a specific website or find you on LinkedIn or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess anyone who's interested, they can go to smartbarrel.io, like our website. This is where they can find some information. We're working on rebuilding it now. And just Albert Bou Fadel is my LinkedIn. If anyone wants to chat more than happy to.
Whenever you write your book, let me know because I'll be the first one to buy it.
Yeah, one day. It's the business I'm in is a hindsight game. So I can act all smart now. We'll see in 3 years where I'm at. But if this pans out right, it's definitely worthy of a book. But until then, it's I'm playing the hindsight game. This is all looking backwards. So we'll see.
Thanks, Albert.
Oh, thank you.